I stepped onto the tarmac in Boston, the humid air of the East Coast clinging to my skin, a stark contrast to the smog and dry chill of Beijing. 10 years. I had been working abroad in China for a full decade, building a logistics empire that would ensure my family never had to worry about money again. In my briefcase, I carried gifts I had spent weeks selecting. For Victoria, my eldest, a rare silk tapestry from Suzhou. And for Elizabeth, my youngest, a specialized, voice-activated tablet designed to help her navigate the world, despite the tremors caused by her condition. But before I tell you what I found behind the gates of the estate I bought for them, I need you to join this circle of truth. If you believe that family should be a sanctuary and not a battleground, please like this video. Share it with someone you trust. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and subscribe to our channel. We are about to walk through a door that should have remained closed. But now that it's open, we cannot look away. My driver navigated the winding roads toward the colonial-style estate in Lexington. I had purchased this home in both their names, a sanctuary where Victoria could pursue her art and Elizabeth could live with dignity. But as the car idled at the curb, a knot tightened in my stomach. The wheelchair ramp I had commissioned the architect to build was missing. The front entrance was stairs, just steep, unforgiving stairs. I paid the driver and walked up the driveway, my excitement curdling into a cold dread. The lawn was manicured to perfection, displaying an elegance that screamed wealth. Yet it lacked the accessibility features I had explicitly paid for. I bypassed the front door, drawn by the sound of voices drifting from the rear courtyard. It was Victoria's voice, shrill and commanding, a tone I hadn't heard since she was a teenager fighting over a curfew. "I told you to scrub the patio stones before the guests arrive," she shouted. "You are useless. Do you want to sleep in the garage again?" My breath hitched. I moved silently through the hedge, peering through the iron gate. What I saw stopped my heart. Elizabeth was on her hands and knees on the rough cobblestones. Her wheelchair was nowhere in sight. She was wearing oversized, stained mechanic's coveralls that hung loosely on her frail frame. My beautiful daughter, who battled a severe autoimmune disorder that attacked her joints, was scrubbing the floor with a rag, her hands raw and trembling. Victoria stood over her, holding a glass of iced tea, looking impeccable in a designer dress. Beside her stood a man I didn't recognize, tall, arrogant, wearing a tennis outfit. He nudged Elizabeth's leg with his sneaker. "Missed a spot there, Liz. Come on, earn your keep." "Dad would be sick if he saw this," Victoria sneered, taking a sip of her drink. "Good thing Anderson is too busy chasing yuan in China to care about a burden like you." Burden. That word hung in the air like toxic smoke. I pushed the gate open, the iron hinges screeching. "Hello, Victoria." The color drained from my eldest daughter's face instantly. She spun around, the glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the patio. "Dad? You weren't supposed to be back until autumn." I ignored her, walking past her frozen form, my eyes locked on the trembling figure on the ground. Elizabeth looked up, and the light in her eyes was gone. In its place was a hollow, terrified resignation. She flinched as I approached, shielding her face with a dirty arm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'll finish it. I promise." "Elizabeth," I choked out, dropping to my knees beside her, ruining my suit trousers on the wet stone. "It's me. It's Dad." She blinked, tears cutting tracks through the grime on her cheeks. "Dad? They told me you stopped writing. They told me you forgot." "I never stopped writing," I said, my voice trembling with a rage I could barely contain. "I wrote every week. I reached out to help her, feeling how prominent her ribs were beneath the rough fabric. She was dangerously thin. "Let me get you up." "I can't walk well today," she murmured, shame coloring her cheeks. "They took my chair. Said I didn't need it if I was just scrubbing floors." I lifted Elizabeth into my arms. She weighed nothing. Victoria rushed forward, her shock replaced by a frantic, nervous energy. "Dad, wait! It's not what it looks like. Elizabeth insisted." She dropped out of her online courses. She wanted to contribute to the household. She wanted to feel useful. Useful? I turned to face her, holding her sister against my chest. By scrubbing floors on her knees in a house I bought for her? A house that is legally half hers? The man in the tennis outfit stepped forward, putting a protective hand on Victoria's shoulder. "Look, Anderson, is it? You've been abroad a long time. Things changed. Elizabeth needed structure. We're just helping her earn her keep." Earn her keep? The audacity took my breath away. Seeing my child reduced to a servant in her own home breaks a piece of your soul that can never be fully repaired. If you would never let this happen to your own blood, if you stand against this kind of betrayal, subscribe right now. Show them that the world is watching and that justice isn't dead. "Where is her room?" I demanded, ignoring his hand. The utility suite," Victoria stammered. "It's quieter there." I carried Elizabeth into the house. The main rooms were lavishly decorated with modern art and expensive furniture, clearly purchased with the money I had been sending. But when Victoria led me to the utility suite, I nearly vomited. It was a converted pantry off the laundry room. No windows. A mattress on the floor, a space heater with a frayed cord. "Where's your equipment?" I asked Elizabeth, setting her gently on the mattress. "The ergonomic keyboard? The motorized chair?" "Sold," Elizabeth whispered, looking down. "Julian said they took up too much space. Said we needed the money for repairs." "Repairs?" I looked at the pristine marble floors of the hallway. "And the allowance?" "I sent $4,000 a month specifically for your medical care and therapy." "We use a shared account," Victoria said quickly from the doorway. "For groceries, electricity. It's expensive to run a house this size, Dad." I looked at the single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling of my daughter's cell. "Pack a bag, Elizabeth. Whatever you have." "Dad, you can't just take her," Victoria protested, her voice rising in panic. "She has a routine here. She's fragile." "You're right. She is fragile," I said, my voice deadly calm. "And she is leaving with me. Now." Elizabeth pointed to a plastic grocery bag in the corner. "That's everything." I grabbed the bag. It was heartbreakingly light. I carried my daughter out of that house, past the stunned silence of Victoria and her partner, Julian. I didn't stop walking until I placed her in the back seat of a luxury car I summoned via an app. We drove straight to the Four Seasons in downtown Boston. I booked the presidential suite, not for the luxury, but for the safety. After Elizabeth had her first hot bath in years and a meal she actually chose, she fell asleep in a bed that didn't smell of mildew. I sat on the balcony and made a phone call. I didn't call the family lawyer Victoria knew. I called attorney Hawthorne, a vicious litigator I had used for corporate acquisitions. "Hawthorne, I need you to pull the deed on the Lexington property," I said, cutting straight to the point, "and check for any transfers or amendments." He called me back within the hour. "Anderson, you're not going to like this. The deed was transferred to sole ownership of Victoria Vance 4 years ago." "How?" I demanded. "Elizabeth is a co-owner. She would have to sign." "She did," Hawthorne said. "Or rather, her guardian did. There are documents here declaring Elizabeth mentally incompetent due to cognitive decline associated with her illness. Incompetent? I gripped the phone so hard the screen creaked. Elizabeth is a brilliant coder. Her illness is physical, not cognitive. Who signed the evaluation? A Dr. Bastian Moreau, Hawthorne read. I've never heard of him. Find out who he is, and find out where my money went. I hung up and called my private banker in Shanghai. The monthly transfers, the medical stipend, where did it land? It was auto-routed to an account under Victoria Vance and Julian Thorne, the banker confirmed. We assumed it was a joint management account, as per the updated directives we received 4 years ago. Directives I didn't sign, I said. They were signed by you, sir. Or, at least, someone with your power of attorney. The scale of the betrayal was staggering. Over 10 years, but specifically ramping up in the last 4, they had siphoned hundreds of thousands of dollars. They had stolen the house. They had stolen Elizabeth's life. When Elizabeth woke up, I sat by her bed. Elizabeth, I know this is hard, but I need to ask about Dr. Moreau. Did you see him? No, she said, her voice raspy. I never saw a doctor like that. I haven't seen a real doctor in 3 years, Dad. My MS, it's gotten worse because I haven't had my infusions. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Did you sign papers transferring the house? I signed something, she admitted. 4 years ago, I had a bad fall. I was on heavy painkillers. Victoria said they were insurance forms for the hospital. She held my hand to guide the pen because I was shaking so bad. They tricked you, I said softly. They declared you incompetent, Elizabeth. They said your mind was gone, so they could take everything. She sat up, anger flashing in her eyes for the first time. My mind is the only thing I have left. I coded 3 apps before they took my laptop away. We are going to prove that, I promised. But I need to know everything. Did they hurt you physically? She hesitated, then pulled up the sleeve of the hotel robe. Mottled bruises, some yellow and fading, some fresh and purple, lined her upper arm. Victoria pinches when she's angry. But Julian, he likes to push. He pushed me out of the chair before they sold it. He said I needed to learn to crawl if I wasn't going to contribute. I walked to the window, looking out over the Boston skyline, shaking with a primal desire for violence. But violence would only land me in jail, and Elizabeth needed me here. I needed to destroy them legally. I needed to dismantle their lives, brick by brick. We are going to the police, I said. But it's often hard to prove domestic abuse without evidence, especially with the incompetent label they slapped on you. Elizabeth reached into the pocket of the dirty jeans I had thrown in the trash, which she had retrieved. She pulled out a tiny, cracked USB drive. I have evidence, she said. What is this? I asked, taking the drive. They thought I was stupid, Elizabeth said, her voice gaining strength. They thought because my legs don't work, my brain doesn't either. Julian left his old tablet in the kitchen. He didn't log out. I couldn't move much, but I could record. I set it to record audio whenever there was shouting. I managed to email myself copies of the documents they left on the counter. I downloaded everything to this drive before they smashed the tablet. We met with Detective Brogan the next morning. He was a skeptical man, tired and overworked. But when Elizabeth plugged that drive into his laptop, the room went silent. The audio filled the small interrogation room. Victoria's voice clear as day. Just sign the check, you cripple, or you don't eat tonight. Julian's voice. "The old man in China is never coming back. You're ours now." Then came the documents. Bank statements showing transfers to luxury car dealerships. The forged medical evaluation from Dr. Moreau, who, as it turned out, had lost his license 5 years ago for opioid distribution. Detective Brogan closed the laptop. His face was grim. "This is extensive. We have fraud, elder and dependent adult abuse, larceny, and forgery. And looking at these bruises, assault. The arrest happened 2 days later. I wasn't there, but Hawthorne gave me the details. Police swarmed the Lexington estate. Victoria was hosting a brunch. She was led out in handcuffs in front of her high society friends. Julian tried to run out the back, but was tackled by officers near the garage. They were released on bail within 24 hours, of course. They were arrogant. They called me, leaving voicemails screaming about how I was ruining the family image, how this was all a misunderstanding, how Elizabeth was a pathological liar. But they didn't know about the second wave. Social Security fraud, Hawthorne told me over lunch. We found it. They've been cashing Elizabeth's disability checks for 4 years. That's federal. That brings in the FBI. The state charges were bad. But federal charges are a nightmare. The walls were closing in. We filed civil suits to reverse the house transfer and freeze their assets. Victoria's bank accounts, filled with my money, were locked. They had no access to funds for their expensive defense attorneys. The trial was set for 6 months later. We spent that time getting Elizabeth healthy. Proper medication, physical therapy, a new customized wheelchair. She started to look like herself again. The trial was a media circus. The Cinderella angle played well in the press. But inside the courtroom, it was brutal. Victoria's public defender tried to double down on the incompetence strategy. Your Honor, the lawyer argued, Elizabeth is confused. Her memory is spotty. She imagined these slights. Then, Elizabeth took the stand. She wheeled herself up, adjusted the microphone, and spoke. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She dissected their timeline with the precision of a programmer. On June 14th, 2021, my sister claimed I was unable to feed myself, Elizabeth stated. Here is the log from the smart home system showing I was locked in the pantry from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. without food. I hacked the lock log to prove it. The jury was out for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Victoria sobbed as the verdict was read. Julian stared at the table, refusing to look at me. The judge was merciless. You took a position of trust and turned it into a weapon, the judge said. You preyed on your own flesh and blood. Victoria was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Julian got 6. They were ordered to pay full restitution, though I knew we'd never see that money. It was gone. But the house was returned to us. We didn't move back into the house immediately. I had it gutted. The basement pantry was torn out. We installed an elevator. We turned the entire ground floor into an accessible smart home masterpiece for Elizabeth. But we decided not to keep it just for us. Elizabeth had an idea. There are others, Dad, she told me one night. People trapped in back rooms, people whose families steal their voices. We launched the Liberty Initiative. We used the recovered assets to fund a legal team dedicated to fighting financial exploitation of the disabled. The Lexington house became our headquarters. I stood on the new veranda, watching the sun set over the garden where I had found my daughter scrubbing floors only a year ago. Elizabeth was inside, leading a video call with a client in Ohio, her voice strong and confident. I thought about the 10 years I spent in China. I thought about the empire I built, the millions I made. I would trade every single cent to have been here 4 years ago, to have stopped the first cruel word, the first slap. We cannot change the past, but we can shape the future. If this story moved you, if you believe in protecting the vulnerable and standing up against injustice, please subscribe. It's not just a click, it's a promise that you stand with us, that you are part of the solution. Elizabeth rolled out onto the porch, handing me a cup of tea. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I'm thinking I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," I said, resting my hand on her shoulder. "I'm home."